Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to, once again, game number 1 between the Captain, aka SorenJohnson, and Red Sparowe. Bit of a different map this time. Iron, a bit more limited. There are a couple of high tiles, and basically just a couple of patches on the map. Quite possible that one player will get each, but there is also acceptable carbon available, and one thing I know for sure about this game is that Soren really likes to play his scavenger, so I would not be too surprised if we see one player kind of end up in an iron patch as an expansive or robotic player, and then the other player end up in this crater with this kind of acceptable carbon. There you go. Red Sparowe actually going to be the one to take scavenger. I'm sure the captain's not going to be happy about that. He is going to have to figure out how to make the iron work, whereas Red Sparowe, he is just gathering up some aluminum. He is gathering up the carbon that he is going to need to keep expanding. Maybe a bit of a questionable found in its exact location, but it could work out reasonably well. If adjusted one way or another, maybe you could have better triangles available. But with the small number of tiles Scavenger has available to them usually, I don't imagine it'll be too much of a problem. The captain has chosen, in fact, to go for scientific this game. He is going to have to be very careful with that, because there are, of course, filthy pirates available for purchase on the black market. He's just going into a very standard steel triangle. He will need to purchase up aluminum in order to hit that HQ level 2. Doesn't look like, man, even though there was quite a bit of aluminum on the map, it actually might be more of a problem than last game, as there was no high tile and no medium tile even available to really help deal with that. I imagine Red Sparowe is just going to be heading for something like this silicon tile with his last claim that he has available. You can see one more left there. It'll be interesting to see exactly how that goes down. The captain, he has chosen to go for it. Looks like one aluminum tile. He does not want to allow Red Sparowe full control over the aluminum. This mule could be huge right now. Oh, that's a big auction. And he has also taken 2 water tiles. Alright, mule. What's this gonna do? Soren, I think, should really push this a bit. He can really fight the aluminum battle in the early game with a mule. I mean, that thing alone will get you the aluminum you need to upgrade. And so, okay, I see the mule picked up by Soren. I expect it to head right out to one of these tiles. And where is this guy going? It's actually headed to the aluminum here. He values this potential adjacency more than the closeness from here. So the mule is headed out to aluminum. I am not surprised in any way. And we do have reactors flying out from the captain. I definitely like the reactors against pirates better than I like food. As the money's a little bit more distributed, the resources are generally less valuable, so less of them can get taken away from you if pirates do come out. Let's go ahead and cover the black market, the rest of it that's available this game. We've got Cook the Books, which could be useful for just knocking down that bond rating, or bringing up that bond rating, knocking down that interest rate occasionally. Could be useful. Corporate Spies, always nice to have to check for goon squads if you need to do that. Power surges, adrenaline boosts, dynamite mutinies, and goon squads available. Always important to note that adrenaline boost being ready to go. Very useful for scientists most of the time, since they don't have to pay consumption costs. They don't have to feed their buildings if they're set up appropriately most of the time. And very important for off-world markets and being able to abuse those very effectively with the fast build times and the fast launches on that very important building. Wow, there's actually an aluminum shortage on the way. Pirates do come down immediately on aluminum. Soren doesn't even know this shortage is coming yet, but this could work out reasonably well for him to make a tidy profit off of Red Sparowe's aluminum before he's able to take too much advantage on this aluminum. You can also see Soren has bought quite heavily into this shortage, which he definitely needs to, as he still needs an upgrade, but Red Sparowe hasn't done that at all. He's just kind of letting it sit there, despite the fact that he had the early warning. It'll be interesting to see what Soren does with this. Looks like he's just trying to keep enough aluminum to upgrade. I'm wondering if he's going to even try and go for more pirates in response to this. That could be very interesting. He does have the ability to upgrade now. Steel very, very cheap for him. Going to go ahead and take that. I think long term this will likely still play in Red Sparowe's favor, but there is the potential for these to be mutinied There is the potential for them to be pirated further. All that aluminum has been stolen by now, though. This is just that's an interesting shortage to get on this map at this phase of the game. Hard to take too much advantage of immediately, since you do have upgrades and buildings to worry about, but long term could be very, very nice. Pirates thrown down, this time by Red Sparrow, trying to grab up, it looks like, oxygen and fuel in particular from Soren. Also has the potential to grab aluminum with their particular placement, all those resources coming through this lane. He's already gotten 60 of the 100 that he is going to steal. And it looks like he'll probably get the last batch right here and now. Those are going to be some very, very beneficial steals, no matter what Red Sparrow ends up getting from all these resources. It was, in fact, 21 aluminum, which means I think he might even steal 100 and... Oh, steals just a little bit of fuel and oxygen. They're still in the air, just barely. I wonder how much those have actually gotten stolen at this point. A lot of aluminum getting taken down. Were those two sets of pirates, or are pirates bugged right now? This is an interesting question. Because it says they're stealing a lot. I don't know, guys. It's hard to say. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. I'm going to assume everything's working as intended. At least both players have access to pirates. And I do see that he does have two sets of pirates down. So we'll just have to see exactly how all that plays out. Always a bit of a concern going for a scientific play on a map with pirates, though, especially against a scavenger. Alright, Captain stuck at HQ level 3 for the time being, whereas Red Sparrow has moved on to 4. He is throwing down a diamond of food, and yep, immediately frozen. No surprise there whatsoever. That is $400 a second that Red Sparrow is not receiving right now. Definitely a big, big deal. He has managed to get a goon squad out on top of those. But at least the captain is maybe buying himself a little extra time to not be hit by Black Market himself, and the ability to move through upgrades very quickly. Now, another important detail of this game is that Red Sparrow chose to make his HQ level 3 cash in order to get those pirates and everything out through glass furnaces. And as you can see, that glass price is very low right now, and he still has a significant stockpile of glass built up. These are going to be very, very close to losing money very soon. And on top of that, it is reducing that glass price and allowing the captain to catch up on upgrades due to the reduced price of that glass. You do have to wonder if going for the triple glass furnace was a strong play in this circumstance. Circuit overload. We have not seen a significant power play out of either player yet from what I am seeing. It's just like this one solar panel from the captain. He has gone into an additional one during the solar flare, but nighttime is on the way. So this power surge, it looks like the captain's going to end up being the one to take it. He actually has an iron mine and 2 steel mills down at the moment. Interesting detail. Could work out all right for him. And he is going to immediately circuit overload these glass furnaces, doubling their power cost to 0.4. Probably a reasonable target to go ahead and hit, but those could always just be turned off at this point, one would imagine. I don't believe circuit overload prevents buildings from being turned off at this point. So I would just, yeah, get rid of those, not pay that power price if I were Red Sparrow. For now, he is going to hit HQ level. Okay, yeah, he's just going to scrap them, say forget it. I don't want those buildings to cost me any power whatsoever. I like it. It's a good decision. Red Sparrow has hit HQ level 5. I do appreciate the fact that he is scrapped out of his solar panels. He, interestingly enough, he's not pulling in any of this silicon right now, as the captain has stolen that silicon away from him with a mutiny. So this $81 silicon flying through the air, super, super valuable at the moment. And by the time Red Sparrow gets a hold of it, okay, he has mutinied it back. He is going for an additional one. It'll be interesting to see if he can actually turn that around and make a significant amount of money from it, or if the captain's just going to try and mutiny right back right now. Adrenaline boosts not even touched yet this game is definitely worth noting. That is a big deal, and it is also a very big deal that the captain still has an insane amount of debt right now, 150,000, despite the fact that he's had these solar panels up for a little while. And with Red Sparrow going into 3 solar panels, that is interesting. It is interesting to see that Red Sparrow is actually getting the better end of the power, despite the fact that he didn't set up for it basically until HQ level 5 this game. Just not taking mini auctions. Not being a scavenger is also definitely a big deal. Not having steel mills available, using farms for money instead of the reactors, which cost 3 times as much power. All of those things can make small differences that end up, you know, playing a huge role in how the game plays out. Alright, power should be crashing pretty quickly during the day at this point with all these solar panels out. You can see it's dropping by 2 a second and will likely become irrelevant shortly as the game moves forward. Glass furnace is going back up for Red Sparowe. I don't know how I feel about that. There's a lot of silicon coming in, but silicon's still $85 a piece right now. And another circuit overload is now available. Boost on solar panels, not really what you're looking for when nighttime's coming in just 1 hour. That is a bit unfortunate for the captain. Always nice to have an adrenaline boost, but you gotta be careful about exactly what you're doing with them. Circuit overload looks like, oh, Soren still wants it. Doesn't want to get hit by it in particular, I imagine, on these steel mills, but I wouldn't worry about it too much at this point. So he's going to be grabbing that up, and Red Sparowe has started to buy into his own stock. This is very much what Red Sparowe was doing last game, playing very defensively once he got to HQ5. Soren's keeping up a bit better this time. Still has 2 claims left. He is on HQ5 as well, but Red Sparowe with that stock advantage, with that debt advantage, and I think not quite with a cash advantage right now, and I'm still very worried about choosing to use 3 claims on glass furnaces. They might work out okay, but you have to wonder, would it have been better to maybe be able to commit some of those extra claims to water? I think water might end up being a huge problem for Red Sparowe this game, because despite the fact that there is ice available, he's actually trying to boost on his farms, but he just doesn't have the water to support that very well, I think. 2 water a second, I mean, they're only making $50 a second as boosted tiles. That's really not what you're looking for, and he's having trouble keeping them online. They're going to be consuming water so quickly. Look at how fast those profits are dropping, and this is exactly playing out what I was trying to talk about, this idea that I don't know if he has enough water in order to sustain this kind of production. He's only got 1 high tile. It's good there are no underground nukes available this game, or he could be seriously punished for this, because he has access to, I think, 2 ice tiles. Maybe 3. No? Okay. I'm going to change that. It looks like he might have access to as many as 5 ice tiles. But do you really want to have to use ice when you had decent water just right next to your base? That might end up being a serious problem for him this game. He is struggling. He is struggling, absolutely, to make decent money right now. Whereas Soren, he's just like, whatever. I'm just going to boost out water. Deal with that. Now, Red Sparowe will by stealing some of it, and Soren, he's going to have some trouble with the black market these days because he is in that D debt range, but he has managed to push to a defended off-world market already. Whereas Red Sparowe, he just doesn't have the cash for that. He's got nothing. Nothing in hand right now. Soren's still kind of churning away on electronics. He still has food flying through the air just fine. Silicon, not really all that relevant right now. That's why you have to be so careful taking 2 silicon tiles. They can easily become dead later in the game. And power, of course, doing absolutely nothing. Red Sparowe going to transition away from his power. I expect this to go into reactors is what it is going to be. Reactors or electronics could have been fine. The glass could easily move into electronics without too much trouble. But Red Sparowe is going to have to make a game-ending move before too long. He's going to have to set up a building that can actually do something to finish this game. Now, I think this tile auction is actually a really huge deal. Because if Red Sparowe can get a hold of this, that gives him 3.5 water a second instead of just 2 water a second. Almost doubles his water production. But he's not going to end up getting it. Soren's going to take it. He is going to take on that debt that he needs to in order to keep control of the water market. And in the moment, he boosted out water and dropped that price down dramatically as his way of handling the fact that water was very, very expensive. I don't really expect to see that again this game out of a scientist. He shouldn't ever be in a position the rest of this game where he desperately needs to make money right now off of something like water. Instead, what he can do is simply abuse the fact that Red Sparowe only has 2 water available and drive up the price of that water by buying into it in order to cut into Red Sparrow's potential production into his resources without it affecting Soren and the money that he is making in the slightest. It will severely limit Red Sparrow's options on what he can transition into this game and what he can try and find to make money out of. Now, this whole time, we do have a boosted Offworld. I never really checked prices this game. It is sending aluminum. And if aluminum is definitely not what it should be sending, let's be honest. What it might have been is simply that aluminum is what Soren could afford to purchase in the moment to get a shipment off, and that's very reasonable. $4 aluminum, just chuck 100 of that in, go, make money off that, then transition into sending a more valuable resource like oxygen. I do like that the oxygen is queued up. I'm worried about the fact, okay, he does cancel the aluminum. That is a reasonable decision if you are having trouble scrounging together the money to get the big launch off, because you're sending an expensive resource that will then pay off huge.
Look at all the money.
Then you can send a less expensive resource, make a small profit off that, then go into your giant resource. And that's exactly what it looks like Soren was doing this game. I'm very concerned for Red Sparrow at this point. You can see Soren has managed to secure 4 of Red Sparrow's stock. He's going to need $260,000, $270,000 to clean this up at this point. Is what it looks like he is securing more and more of his own stock. And Red Sparrow still does not have an end-game play going. He has moved into an engineering lab. I do not like the engineering lab in the 1v1. Electronics simply are not making a significant amount of money, and upgrading them is costing chemicals, which are being very, very expensive to produce because of the carbon cost. You can see Red Sparrow, he's actually transitioned out of carbon in the moment. I think getting a little bit flustered here, going right back into it now. If these were carbon tiles instead of electronics tiles, I think they could be getting significantly more work done, because by moving into these chemicals, by moving into these electronics, he is just pushing himself further and further and further away from ever doing something like dropping his own off-world market, and that's definitely going to be causing him problems this game. Red Sparrow does only need $244,000 to clean this game up at this point, dropping by the moment as Soren's stock price is kind of doing crazy things during these power difficulties, but I still don't see how he's going to scrounge together even that tiny amount of money compared to Soren, who's basically already halfway there to his goal, which also keeps dropping by the moment as Red Sparrow takes on more and more and more debt from this very high power price. And I don't think Red Sparrow has any kind of power production set up right now. He could transition into some on these silicon tiles very, very easily. He could transition into some on these aluminum tiles potentially, but at this point it looks like it's just going to be too little too late. Soren's still running on a boosted Offworld, 73% of the way there, 74% now. His stock price is down at the $10 range, but if your opponent has no money, I'm not sure you have to care. Definitely a big deal right now. Soren is also moving into a hacker array, which I'm sure he will try and use as the nail in the coffin. I don't know if it's going to be necessary. This next send, let's watch what it does. 87 straight to 100% on the Offworld launch. The red button's there, and Soren is going to take game number 1 in this best of 3 series. Well, guys, I think Red Sparrow had the advantage once again, kind of moving into those later stages, like through the mid game and into the late, but you have to set up something to actually push to the money you need to kill your opponent. Just kind of sitting back most of the time, especially in a 1v1 scenario, and trying to make resources can be very difficult to make work. And I think it was absolutely a huge deal. Like, the big thing that happened that game, as we pushed into the late game in particular, was that Red Sparrow drove up the price on water by boosting out his food, right? So he's consuming 8 water a second when he's only receiving 2 water a second. So he's basically pulling in 6 water a second from the market. We saw that price jump up dramatically with that adrenaline boost. Like, it just, the water price skyrocketed. And then Soren just takes advantage of this and is like, all right, you're making $50 a second, $20 a second on your adrenaline boosted food. I'm going to turn around and make $400 a second on 1 of my adrenaline boosted water tiles. Oh, and by the way, I've got 3. So that, I think, was the huge thing that led to the outcome of this game. It allowed Soren to have that resource that pushed him so far ahead of Red Sparrow just in the moment, set up the off-world market, protect it, boost it, and at that point, with a Goon Squatted boosted off-world market, what's your opponent going to do? Unless they can push to their own very, very quickly, you are going to have problems that game. Chemicals definitely hurt Red Sparowe. You have to be very, very careful with chemicals at this phase of the game. And you have to be very, very careful making carbon-based resource, carbon-based production when you are a scavenger, because it does prevent you from moving into that off-world market as easily. Just very, very small details there, but they can make a serious difference in how the game is going to end up playing out. And once again, I do not like the engineering lab as an end-game tool. It just does not have a serious impact on the game quickly for the amount of resources and time it takes committed to it. And we could see that game, it did basically nothing at all. Gotta watch out for that. Shorts and surpluses. I don't even know if Soren got a short off on his hacker array. He did not. I don't think he even... Yeah, he never even got the hacker array finished. The launch cleaned up, and then that was all she wrote. All right, guys. We're going to get on out of here and head on over into game number 2.